you can say that, yeah, he's a role model influencer for me and he motivates me. But the daily motivation doesn't come from there. The daily motivation comes from the people around you, and your friends, your company. And for me, the closest company for me was the friends with whom I did my startup. So 5 or 6 people who we started with together. We were not thinking about making money. We were not thinking about any revenues, or soaring high in the sky and selling a startup and being acquired for $1 billion, or we were just were trying to address the pain points, just enthusiastic, working on an interesting business model, and we were passionate enough.
Okay, so welcome you all to Intellify in the Vartalap series. Today we have with us a very special guest who has defined himself with hard work, belief, and determination. So, ladies and gentlemen, today we have with us Mr. Desh Deepak Dwivedi, co-founder and chief operating officer at Precisely, the Opportunity Hub, who has wonderful skills and talents in negotiation, entrepreneurship, communication, public speaking. And you would be glad to know he too is the author of Behind the Scenes. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, Mr. Desh, you would like to share something with our audience first?
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. Thanks to the whole team of Intellify for remembering me this in these times of pandemic, when people are inviting all those big personalities out there on those webinars and shows. So yeah, startup founders are also being recognized and invited. It's a good thing, especially for the community. So I would appreciate that really, and thanks again to you too for hosting this webinar.
So welcome you to the Intellify webinar. So starting off with the questions, we have ample of questions which several people would love to hear from you, our audience who would love to hear your insightful stories. So as I mentioned in the introduction session that you are the co-founder and chief operating officer at Precisely. So we all know that the roots of being determined and establishing institutions starts from school. So our audience would love to know about your schooling life, how it was, and what kind of kid you were as in school.
Ah, okay, that's a tough question because it has been already like 7 years since I passed out. But yeah, so remembering the times, the better audience to ask this question would be my parents, because what kind of a kid I was, it will be more of a blabbering and less of a fact when I tell it by myself. But yeah, like listening from the horse's mouth, I myself got to hear about stories, which I diligently did not wanted to portray myself as, but yes, I came out like that. So I was a funny, delightful, passionate, not so much into studies, but yeah, but not at all into sports kind of guy. So if that defines me well. So but the thing was that I never took studies seriously ever, honestly. Not saying that you should also do that the same, but myself, because I was more interested in things out of the syllabus. So I always went on the internet and searched upon new things and wanted to explore new careers. So when I was still my 11th and 12th class, the intermediate, then there were many career options. Yes, I was a science student. I did not take maths. I was into the PCB side of it. I never wanted to be a doctor because I knew that I couldn't crack physics. So I knew about myself that I can't be a doctor. I wanted to be a psychiatrist, psychologist. So I took psychology as a subject in my intermediate courses, and then it proved out to be helpful personally to me. So I said, rather than being a psychiatrist and healing people, let me apply this psychology to different domains. So why not business? So because business conventionally was led in a very conventional and traditional way. So I said, yeah, I mean, like if people like us who have like innovative knowledge and who can apply fields like psychology, theology, and other sciences into business, into other fields, we can mingle up and create something new by the dialectical process of the two forces. So I said, yeah, why not explore a new career? So I actually enrolled into CIC, and that is after the school life. going back to the school again, while going through the journey, while keeping myself as the core subject, in the school, I found that, my life to me was very interesting. So I thought, like, maybe that was just my thought. I thought maybe when I tell story about my life in a way that it is written in a form of a fiction, where some stories and incidents are taken from my own life, the characters are always fictional, the setting is real, everything else is factual. I am not there in the story, but yeah, there are incidents and stories picked up from my life, the interesting ones. So I thought, why not share these stories with the audience, with the public, with other fellow students. So that is when I decided to actually write up a book. And in my school, like that you mentioned, that I'm author of Behind the Scenes, so that is the book that I authored in my school days, and that went out pretty well. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, that was most of all the school life.
So that was quite an interesting answer. Now, moving ahead, most of the people audience would be eager to know that you are a co-founder and chief operating officer of Precisely. So the
Mhm.
audience would like to know something about this institution, this particular institution.
Okay. So, so I mean, can I be flexible and refer to my journey when I come to this Precisely, because this
Yeah, yeah,
Precisely
sure,
has a
sure.
backstory to it. So yeah,
Yeah, sure.
so thank you for that. So I'll take a couple of minutes for all of them who are listening, because there is a context to it. So when I passed out of school, continuing the story that I was telling before. So when I passed out of the school, I joined this center called the Cluster Innovation Center, short form CIC, which is a part of the DU, Delhi University, and it was directly governed under the Ministry of Human Resource and Development. So we had an edge over all other students of the university, that we were given preference when we wanted to study a course or select a college in all of the university. So basically, I was a student of CIC, but I can go to any college, be it Hindu, Hansraj, or any other North Campus college, South Campus college, whichever you wanted, select any courses, which fell in my domain of studies. So there are 3 different degrees into it. And then, just go into any class, any semester, with seniors, juniors, and I could just, make up that network and study. And that was the spirit of the whole course. So we got to meet new people, we got to experience new courses, new professors, new teacher, new colleges. Everything was new. So that expanded my horizon and the network that I was a part of, which the conventional students in a university don't usually get to. So that was an edge with me, and I always that was an unfair advantage with me. So I'm always grateful for that. So that is where I got an opportunity to attend a U21 student summit, which is a highly prestigious student summit in the domain of academia, and represented the University of Delhi in Santiago, Chile. So Chile is a country in Latin America. The farthest country that you can go from India is Chile, and that was basically my first trip abroad, international. So that is where I got the door opens for myself, for my community. I got into the domain of international opportunities, exploring opportunities, and creating those networks and following up from them, going to the conferences, improving the CV. And then that one led to another, and then another. And then I attended now close to 40 plus conferences, visited 50 plus countries. And that is when the idea of Precisely came about. So Precisely was, any student in India, basically, if you're a student in the University of Delhi, you basically don't get to know about courses, about conferences, fellowships, webinars, series, anything, workshops happening outside of India or happening outside of your own university, right?
Yeah.
So that was the whole motive of it. So we started with a Facebook page, we turned out into an Android app. Now we have a web version of it as well. So we basically provide students, now coming to Precisely. So what we do is that we basically provide students with opportunities in the form of fellowships, grants, internships, admissions, scholarships, anything that they want, in their student life. And then not just provide and match these opportunities with them, we complete the whole value chain for them. So right from the matching part, we do the profile analysis, we match those opportunities, and then we make sure that you are on a flight to there. So we prepare everything for your flight, visas, immigration, everything, and everything in between as well. So guidance services, mentor connections, alumni connections, housing, total application guidance, everything that falls within that ambit is done by Precisely. So once a student comes on board to Precisely, we never let them leave, basically, in a positive way. So that is what is Precisely, and I'm the head of operations for India and Hong Kong.
So yeah, that's quite a great exposure given to the kids around the place. So coming to the next question, what, according to you, are the key driving forces to be a
Uh-huh.
successful entrepreneur, or you can say a successful human being in general? What, according to you, is the key force for that,
The key
for the same?
force.
Yeah.
Okay, the key force are two for me. For me, they have been curiosity and consistency, the two C's that I follow. So always be curious about things, you know. So maybe like we all use YouTube. I'll tell an example. So we all use YouTube. YouTube gives us recommendations, and that recommendations come from the browsing history that we have, right? But what we do is that YouTube recommends us 10 videos. Suppose you watched a learning video of National Geographic, then you get recommended 10 different videos of National Geographic and Discovery. You watch none of them or just one of them. What I do is that I watch all 10 of them. When it comes to learning, you know, curiosity, not just in the general sense of creativity and music and, you know, fulfilling your taste buds by watching culinary delights, not these things. Learning is not just into the creative side of it. Yes, it is there, but what I'm talking about is the left side of the brain. So what I do is that, you know, be curious about things, be curious about science, be curious about technology around you. That is the future that humanity beholds. So be curious about it, try to learn new skills every day, you know, and then not just be curious, be consistent with it. So keep being curious. That is the other key, you know.
Okay. So the next question, that you have won several accolades, and one
Mhm.
of them is the International Poetry and Theatre Competition. So can you share your experience regarding the same?
Ah, that was quite a delightful one actually. So when I was in my graduation first year, so I went to this conference called the World Youth Forum, Right to Dialogue, which happens in Italy everywhere. So now I'm amongst the organizing committee and partners with their organizations as well. So that is, you know, being organized by the University of Trieste, which is a premier university in the northeastern part of Italy. So the conference gets organized there every year. So that's a World Youth Forum. People from like 70 plus countries come there. They come together, they network, they present their research papers. So basically we have to write a research paper on the theme that the conference gives us, and then present our ideas and interact with, you know, the mayors and people like that on that level. So I attended close to 3 conferences like that, the same conference every year, you know, for 3 years. And then the same forum, the same organizers partnered with UNESCO, if I'm not wrong. Yes. And then they launched this theater and poetry competition in which they invited the previous fellows and new people to present with their poetry and theater, screenplays, you know, and plays, everything. So I was new to this domain. Yes, I was, you know, into writing, you know, a text in the form of literature or in the form of novel or fiction, but I wasn't into poetry. So yeah, I mean, like I wrote a few of poetries for my girlfriends in school, but that was it. So that was the only poetry I ever cared about. So then I switched to a you know, medium of poetry in which I wanted to convey message for the society, for the students, and that is where I participated with them. So we went to Italy, we went to the Duino Castle, the UNESCO people greeted us, and I got a certification and the book published and everything else. So that happened, but it was a great experience, and it opens every year. You can check it on Precisely, so it comes on, so students can apply to it. Yeah.
So yeah, it was quite interesting to know about the same. So with this, we come to the next question.
Hmm.
The people would love to know some of your projects, like you have worked with the awareness to drug abuse, empowerment of rickshaw pullers. So can
Hmm.
you share some of your lessons you got from those projects, and what message you want to impart to the society in which we currently live in?
Okay. So, I mean, the answer to it will be a quite long one, but I don't want to delve into that much. So, what I would like to say, and, you know, to tell the people why these projects and what are these projects, first of all, you know, in a single line. So, you know, I told you I was a part of the center called Cluster Innovation Center. So, our studies were not only focused on academia, they were also focused on doing these research projects every semester. So we had to take up a client, you know, anywhere around us, government, non-governmental, anywhere, NGO, anything, and then work with them for a certain problem present in the society. We were students of humanities and social sciences, so the problem should, you know, lie in that domain. And we used to work with them, we used to provide solutions because we were educated in these fields, but the people facing it firsthand were not. So the people facing it firsthand would tell us about the problem. Say, suppose rickshaw pullers or drug abusers, that this is the problem that you are facing. This is how we reached here, and this is the future that beholds us. So I mean, kind of insights like these, and then we used to ponder upon them. Refer different papers, different best practices around the world. And then recommend them with solutions and everything, and then present up a whole how to say, a forum and a discussion used to happen at the end of the semester, where we used to present to the client, to the government, and to the university our solutions for them. And that turned out to be pretty good experience in all of the semesters. And we were able to, if you just see my LinkedIn profile also, we were able to deliver certain deliverables and KPIs every semester. So that was, you can't do much in 6 months, but we tried our best to actually accomplish all the goals and KPIs that we started with at the start of it. So that was a delightful experience, and every college should actually do it.
So yeah, quite a thing to learn from it. Now, I would love to ask from you that we all have to make decisions in life. Decisions play a very important role in our lives. However, sometimes there are tough decisions that we all have to make in our life. So, were there any phase in your life? Was there any like a part in your life that you had to make a very tough decision, and that impacted your life that you are living in today, in today's era?
uh yeah see, tough or not tough is defined by the person, so it's very subjective. So for me, I mean, like, by the grace of God, everything has been fine with me. But the tough decisions, if you talk about, I had to take two: one in terms of studies, one in terms of my startup. So basically, when I was in my graduation, so I had a choice to either pursue the startup that I was doing or go into the studies. So I chose my startup. But before, precisely, I was doing another startup as well, which is now moved into exports and everything. So we basically stopped the retail segment of it, which was Lithics.in. So that was a choice then. So either do Lithics, the startup that I was doing, or do studies further for masters and everything, or go abroad. So that was the first choice that I had to make. It was a pretty hard one for every youngster out there, who is into this field, who wants to do entrepreneurship, who wants to go into the domain of startups. This is a hard choice to make, because you have to convince your parents, you have to convince your families, friends, everybody, and make sure that you earn, or start earning, or make your mark in the field. Because when you go to do masters, you get good jobs, good placements, people with you start earning, but you are still doing the startup. You are pulling heavy weights every day, and you're
Yeah.
making your mark, trying to make, and you never know if you'll be successful or a failure. So
Mm.
if you, to come in that 1%, you have to believe in yourself and keep trying. But you can never be sure of, and you should never be sure of, you'll be succeed or not, because that is a great learning experience, in itself. So that was the first choice I had to make. So I obviously went with startups. So that was a good choice for me. Now it proved out well. And the second choice was, I went to study in China, for my first master. So I have two masters, one from China, Peking University, second from the Hong Kong University of Science and Tech. So the first, when I went to China, so I had a choice between Cambridge in the UK and China. So I applied to many other universities in the UK and Canada and everywhere else, but these two were the ones where I wanted to go. So my parents and everybody else was like, "Oh, go to Cambridge because yeah, that's Cambridge." But I wanted to go and focus on the business side of it, because I was operating in the region of Asia, and I wanted student population, and the second, or the first highest, in fact, student population is in China. So I wanted to move into there. So I wanted to expand my business in the mainland region. So that is why I actually wanted to go and study in China, explore their culture, understand people, establish the business. But I couldn't tell that to anybody, because everybody just saw Cambridge and Peking. So that were the two universities I had to make choice in between. But I went again with my gut feeling and my choice, and again I proved out right. I think so.
So yeah. So next question, like most of people were asking me to ask this question to you, and also I
Mm-hmm.
have this question, like you are the author of the book
Mm-hmm.
Behind the Scenes.
Mm-hmm.
So what literary advice you would give to the young brimming authors out there who would love to just write their experiences, jot down their experiences of life? What were the things you kept in your mind while writing the book? And just the book came out so well. So what are the lessons you would love to give to all the young folks out there?
Okay. So when you were talking about giving the lesson, you're talking about women authors or authors in general, youngsters?
Authors in general. Authors in general.
Authors in general. Okay. So yeah, I mean, so the first and the only advice that I have is that be raw. You know, be raw. So what books today are telling us, fiction, non-fiction, anything, out there in the market, they are processed. They're processed form of
Yeah.
literature. you know what happens in processed form of literature is that things which are there in the nitty gritties of the society, the things which actually bother us, the things which we can actually relate to, are somewhere missing. So because you have to keep up certain standards, you have to keep up the standards of your previous author, so your predecessors. So so you make sure you process the text well, you edit it so well that you actually lose the crust out of it. So what I made sure while writing my book, it didn't become a huge success, but it was, yeah, we sold close to 5 lakh copies, which was good because I wasn't looking into the commercial side of it. So what I made sure was that I was keeping the text raw. What I felt, I put it down there. Yeah, I mean, grammatically you have to be correct, everything English wise you have to be correct, language wise, everything that else matters. But yeah, you have to be raw. Just put out the emotions as you feel it, because as you, there are other people, teenagers and youngsters, who have the same feelings, same heart, same emotion, same mind. So if you are feeling it, somebody else in those 100 people reading your book might be feeling it. So if you can relate to that 1% in the crowd, your work is done.
Yeah. So the next question is that what keeps you motivated and how do you get such fresh ideas? Who is your biggest motivator in your life?
um See, biggest motivator in my life is the people around me. So now, and since I graduated and started my business, so the people around me who have been doing business with me, so we started with nothing. I don't consider myself or my parents or in my family the usual answers. They're obviously there, but the daily motivation that you get is from the people around you. You don't get to see Steve Jobs this video every day on YouTube and get motivation for yourself. Okay, I woke up, I brushed my teeth, and now I'll watch Steve Jobs video. That is not what you do to get motivation, right? You can say that, yeah, he's a role model influencer for me and he motivates me, but the daily motivation doesn't come from there. The daily motivation comes from the people around you, and your friends, your company. And for me, the closest company for me was the friends with whom I did my startup. So 5 or 6 people who we started with together. We were not thinking about making money. We were not thinking about any revenues, or soaring high in the sky and selling our startup and being acquired for $1 billion, or we were trying to address the pain points, just enthusiastic, working on an interesting business model, and we were passionate enough. And that's what kept us bonded, actually. And we got ourselves too involved into it and too bonded, that we motivate each other every day. So if I'm not feeling like working today, I was like, oh my god, like let's take rest, let's go to party and clubs. So the other one motivates me, that no, we have to actually give 10 hours a day at least to our startup, to make sure that we are the founders. We have to make sure that we set an example for the employees. So those 5 6 people come together and help each other every day, and that's what motivates me every day, to wake up and try and new challenges, solve them and bring up something new for the society as well. So yeah.
So with this, the continuation of the question is that what according to you are great leadership skills that all must possess? All the teens out there, all the adults out there, what kind of
Mhm.
leadership skills one must possess?
Okay, so interesting question, that is. uh, my answer is that not everyone can be a leader. As simple as that. It may sound very bland, but not everybody is made to be a leader. Not everybody should be a leader. If everybody becomes a leader, the society will be a chaos, it will be an anarchy. So people, some people up to some extent are blessed with skills about leadership. It comes from within. So people, you have that aura that people want to follow you. You don't display those skills on a necessary basis, that you're creating videos and putting out people and putting statuses and everything else and creating master classes and telling people that, yeah, I'm a great leader. That doesn't happen like that. The same company has 10 different C-level employees, but people look up to as leaders to one or two of them. That is what basically happens. We know about so many great CEOs and everything, and industry leaders, but they are actually not, they do not possess the leadership charm that we are talking about. People don't want to follow them out of the aura that they have. People just follow them because they are their seniors, and they work as a subordinate to them. So that leadership, the conventional traditional leadership in a company or in an organization, is totally different from what leadership aura is. So leaders are born leaders, what I believe. Not everybody can be leader and should be a leader. So some people must follow. If you don't follow, the society will be a chaos. So yeah, you can develop certain skills to improve your leadership. That's what you can do. You can't become a supreme leader, not that supreme leader, but yeah, supreme leader, and possess all the great qualities and inborn talents from within you. But you can surely improve upon the skill, so that people can see, people around you can actually see and follow you, and you can set an example for them. So that is what you can do and achieve. But you can't be, and compare yourself to be an inborn leader who possesses talent from birth. So that are two different things. My opinions may be controversial, but yeah, that's how I think so.
Yeah, it was interesting to know. Now, moving on to the next question, as there are a lot of people in the society who are in dilemma that how they can just pursue their passion, how the youngsters could pursue their passion, as you have pursued your passion, and today you are doing great. So, what would you suggest the common masses that how to pursue passion, how to recognize your strengths, and how to
Mhm.
channelize those strengths so that it would bring out better outcomes?
You see, mm, the society itself and the environment and nature itself teaches us to do so. So this COVID pandemic, what has it done to all of us? You see, people sitting in their homes from past 5 months, 6 months, have started to create skillful videos, master classes, or things like that, coming up on social media. That's what they can do actually. Like, yeah, social media is the only option to interact with the world. So they tried to follow their passion, because they don't have those job obligations. They don't have that admission and class obligations, that everything is online. So they have enough ample time left within their home space, with their families, to actually pursue what they really wanted to. So the nature taught us, you know that okay, internet is there, technology is there, you are super busy, but take some time out for yourself. You should focus on yourself. If you take the pandemic positively, this is what it has taught us. So we should care about ourselves first. We should come first. Our passion should come first, our needs should come first, and that is when you can support others, right? So if you are
Yeah.
at a steady stage where you are fulfilled in yourself. You said, okay, I achieved my dream, I completed what I wanted to. Now I can suggest a friend or a family, and then people will follow you because you did that. Today you are taking my interview because what I wanted to do, I did that. And now I am setting an example for my little brother to follow in my footsteps, or do something greater, even because I did so. So you have to pave the path for others, and that is what nature is teaching us in this COVID pandemic. Again, coming back to the question. So follow your passion, take out some time for you, no matter which job. There are many obligations for people. You have to earn money, you have to feed your family, you have to respect your parents views as well. So you have to keep the society intact around you. So you can't just go on a lonely mountain and start meditating like that. That's not how we can operate in this world. So what you can do is that take some time out for yourself, follow your passion, follow your hobbies, do what you like, and try to, if you're good at it, try to put it out for the world to see and learn from it. And remind me, like, when you're done with the questions, I would like to pitch something to the audience as well through this interview, that what we are doing, how we are doing our bit to actually inculcate this whole thing that I just discussed for the students and
Yeah,
professionals.
it's the last question, so you could continue with the same. It was the last question, so you could continue with
Okay.
it.
Okay, thank you. So, at precisely, as I told you, like, we matched opportunities with students, and we, complete the whole value chain for the students, and then get them guidance and get them placed and everything. So basically help them crack the opportunities. Now, what we are doing, so we all see the situation right now, the COVID-19 thing. So what we have created is that a platform called LearnEdge. So we name it as LEARNAGE, Learnage. So that is the platform that we have. It is somewhere between YouTube and Patreon. Okay, so it comes somewhere between YouTube and Patreon, where content creators can actually create their own content. They can publish their own content free of cost, you know, and you can keep, for the users to watch, you can keep certain videos, certain blogs. If you are a writer, just write on the platform. You know, people will pay to actually read it, people will pay to actually watch those videos. So you can earn at the same time and display your master skills out to the world. So you, everybody in this world, in this community, student community, professional community, can actually be an influencer now. If your mom cooks food really well, you know, and you think of creating a YouTube channel for your mom and saying, okay, let's get 1 million views and then start earning money out of it, that's never going to happen, right? For a majority of us. So what we kept in mind is that, you know, from day one, if your video is good, you know, people will start watching it. A trial videos will be free of cost for everybody. You can put it by yourself as a you know, Learnage creator, and then people will start paying for your videos, for every video or the package that you're creating. You can keep it for rupee 1, doesn't matter, it's totally up to you. If you think the content is worth it, if you think people are buying your content, keep changing prices, keep playing with it. Yeah, and you, if you, when you start getting the response out of it from the first video or the first view that you get, that inculcates, that brings in the, sorry, the confidence in the creator and in you as well, for creating that YouTube channel, for creating that channel for your mom. So everybody amongst us, everybody in the student community sitting at home can be a influencer, a leader, you know, by teaching skills to others, improving their leadership skills, you know, and then creating content out there to be set an example for your young friends as well. So that is what something we have created and called the Learnage. So check it out as well.
Okay, surely we would check it out. And it was really nice talking to you. Though it was a short interview, but we got to learn a lot from you related to the influencing others, leadership skills, and it was really nice talking to you. And hoping to have you further on our platform as well. And your words of wisdom really help our audience as well, who would like to pursue their dreams and have leadership skills, influence others amidst this COVID-19 pandemic. So thank you for joining with us. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Rahul. Bye.